Okay. Um, yeah. After that, we have started with this intermediate representation. So importance of this intermediate representation is before you go for from front end, whatever is your output, from front end, before you go for the next stage, that is the back end part, there is some sort of optimization could be done. So when you are trying to optimize it, so what is the better way of representing? So how good you can present yours, how good the data could be presented, so that it is easily understood. So in this chapter, that is intermediate representation form, we are just discussing about what are the different ways we can represent and what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages. So starting with that, we have discussed saying that we have three categories. So structural intermediate representation, linear intermediate representation, and hybrid intermediate representation. So structural intermediate representation is the one which we have started off. So as it says, structural intermediate representation, which means that it is nothing but it is talking about graphical. So some graphical way of representing your source file. Just about the importance of abstraction, how much details you have to hide, whether you want to hide, that is like the abstraction should be more or abstraction should be less. So level of abstraction also has been discussed. And then we have started discussing about this, the first, so when we have discussing particularly about this graphical intermediate representation, or I can even say it to be a structural intermediate representation, where this representation could be done based on two ways. That is either by in the form of trees or in the form of graphs. Okay. So again we started discussing, start picking with the trees. So already you know how to generate the trees. So with respect to parse tree, all of us know. So we started discussing with respect to the parse tree. So we have seen one example. So when we say parse tree, how the parse tree would be generated? The parse tree would be generated for a given string along with the non-terminals. The non-terminals would be your node, and from by using those non-terminals, you are just trying to derive your particular string. So when we see this parse tree, or I can say it to be a syntax tree, the number of nodes would be huge, as well as the length of your tree also would be huge. So that means we require that much memory to store this particular tree. So to avoid, to reduce this disadvantage, like the number of nodes to be reduced, what we can do? We can go for the second phase, that is the abstract syntax tree. Abstract means certain informations are hidden. That is like the non-terminal informations are being hidden. So we are not explicitly going to mention about anything about the non-terminals. You are directly trying to derive your particular string itself. That is, the tree would be generated if the string is if you can derive your particular string, then only that string will be represented in the tree format. Okay. So the same example I have shown for parse tree. The same example, a multiplied by 2 plus a multiplied by 2 into b is also taken for abstract syntax tree. So you can see the difference here itself. The number of nodes required for representing the same expression in parse tree as well as an abstract syntax tree, you can just make out the difference. So the number of nodes required in abstract syntax tree is less because we are not going to mention anything. We are not going to give any details about the non-terminals. We are directly mentioning about the string. Okay. So till here we have discussed in the last class. Moving on to the third representation, that is the third tree representation. It says it is directed acyclic graph. Okay, even though the term graph it says, but here it is this comes under the tree representation because it is the continuation of the abstract syntax tree. Okay, so here also the representation would be in the form of abstract syntax tree itself. Say for this one, if you take out for this one, your directed acyclic graph is the continuation of this abstract syntax tree. Why I am saying this? Because the representation would be, the tree generated would be only for the string. What is the difference is, in this expression, if you take out a multiplied by 2, here also you have a multiplied by 2, right? Both the things are same. That is, the a value doesn't change when you reach to your right hand side. The a variable doesn't change, but you are applying it. If you see in tree representation, here also you are calling the same representation is existing. Here also you have the same representation, right? So both, it is like duplication. So you can avoid this duplication. This is what has been done in directed acyclic graph. Okay. In short, we can call it to be as DAG, directed acyclic graph. So here we avoid having duplicate contents. So your nodes will be unique. So the contents will be unique. So that, what is the advantage of advantage going for this when compared with the abstract syntax tree? It is the memory requirement itself. So memory, you can have, for storing this particular expression you require less memory when compared to abstract syntax tree. Okay, so that same for the same expression, that is a multiplied by 2 plus a multiplied by 2 multiplied by b. If you take out a multiplied by 2, which is already here. So first we can write this to be as multiplication of a with 2. After that we have the plus operation. So when you move towards this side, again we have a multiplied by 2. So again a multiplied by 2, which you will be getting from here. So this star representation with the variable value b. Okay, and these two contents are getting added. So plus. Okay, and here it says, according to the name, it says directed. So when I say directed, there should be the direction shown. So direction in the sense, the arrow mark should be mentioned. So arrow mark should be explicitly mentioned in this DAG representation, that is directed acyclic graph. Okay, and always we have to make sure it doesn't form any cycle. So in this name itself, you have to it says acyclic. So always you have to make sure you will never end up in a cyclic representation. So if you are having any graph getting formed in the cyclic representation, then you can't go ahead with that form. It will become like an infinite loop. So always in all the three things, that is parse tree or abstract syntax tree or directed acyclic graph, you have to make sure that you will never end up in a cyclic form. All the three should be in the acyclic form. Okay, clear? One more example. So we have can you mute yourself? I don't know, someone is unmuted. So we have two expressions given, z equals x minus 2 multiplied by y. The second expression says w equals x divided by 2. Okay. So we have two expressions to be mentioned. So here, so when I say two expressions, say first when I'm taking up for the w, okay. First we will be evaluating for z equals x minus 2 multiplied by y. So how the tree would be formed? Tree would be formed in this pattern, right? There is no common things, so it would be taken. So first multiplication would be done. So 2 and y multiplication part, and then x is getting subtracted from that. So x minus this one, and whatever is your result, that has been assigned to the variable z. So this is the assignment equal to part. It has been assigned to this variable z. So this is how the tree would be for the first expression, for this one. Okay, I don't know why this thing from last class onwards, it's moving towards this side. Okay. Now when I start evaluating, drawing the directed acyclic graph for the second expression. So when I say the second expression, I have W equals X divided by 2, right? So W equals X divided by 2. So already X variable I have created a node here, and the value doesn't change. In between itself, there is no, my variable X is not getting modified. So I can directly use the same X. So that's why we didn't create any extra nodes. Whatever has been created, that same nodes are being used here. So I'm taking the X value from here and the value 2 from here. So if you see for the second expression, division operator from the already created X node, that is from here, and the value 2, constant value, which is already there in some register. So that has been represented as here, this node. So it is pointed here. These two contents have been taken and it is divided, and that result has been assigned to the variable W. Okay, so this is how the directed acyclic graph would be represented. Is it clear? It's very dirty. So in directed acyclic graph, there will be, it will try to avoid the duplicate contents so that the redundancy, you achieve this redundancy part.
Ma'am?
So that, yeah.
Ma'am, what if there is a change in the value of X then?
Then you will be creating a different node. Then it will be a different node. Then you can't use the same node.
So for the right one, we will create another node X, like that only.
Hmm?
For the right tree, we will create a X node, no,
No.
ma'am.
X node. Say for example, in between, if you are having some x is equal to x plus 1, what will happen? X is equal to x plus 1 if you are having. In between, here it say x is equals to x plus 1. That is my x. Okay, it's not meeting each other. So if I have x is equal to x plus 1, so what will happen? I will have another so once this is done, I will have another node x, an arrow operator which is equal to part, this one, and initially I would be taking this x. There is no 1 here, so I will have another one. My other one here. I don't know what sort of attraction is there towards left direction for my arrow. So this,
Plus is missing.
yeah, I was thinking about it. Okay, plus. So we'll have a plus operator, and it will take this x, and it will have one more node 1, this one. Now third expression says w is equals to this. Now w is equal to x divided by 2 becomes my third expression. So now instead of going, this part will not be there, this can be removed, and instead it will be pointed to this one. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So graphically, it will be represented like this. After this, we will be seeing about data dependency also. That time it will be more clear. Okay.
Ma'am, can we connect that x plus to this x also, ma'am, where equal to is connected?
Which one? Uh,
Always, whenever the assignment happens, no, the value gets defined to some variable. Okay. Otherwise, in the RHS, whatever previously was defined, that will be used. That is the whole idea. Okay. So in the RHS, if you are taking x plus 1, that will be the previous value. But when I assign something newly, then the expression is evaluated in the RHS and then it is assigned. So that becomes a new value for x. Priyadarshan,
Yes,
clear? Yeah.
yes, ma'am. And this is the optimization phase, no, ma'am, the second phase. And
uh,
in this directed acyclic graph, we are saving some memory, like we are using the same data. But in the previous two, linear and structural, we are just writing the past stream, ma'am. So what have we done to optimize the code?
See, all these are coming under graphical itself. We didn't start with linear part. And this parse tree, abstract syntax tree, as I directed acyclic graph, everything comes under graphical representation itself. That is that too under tree representation. And they see when you are drawing your when you are creating something, there would be at times you have to explicitly go with parse tree itself because your language what you have chosen may be something like that where you explicitly requires the parse tree itself. You are not worried about the memory part. You have enough space for storing everything. So it is easy for see if you are having your tree represented along with the non-terminals, it is clearly defined, right? So it is easy for everything. Only thing is the memory is the only consuming thing. So if your system is having the capacity of enough memory, then you can go with parse tree, no issues. But if your system is something like you don't want to waste this much memory for storing all these non-terminals, instead, if you can do the calculations, all the abstraction, that is, if you can hide certain details like the non-terminals, all these details, what you had in the parse tree, all those things, if you can hide it and hide in the sense background, you can do the operations. You don't have to explicitly show it. Then you can go with your abstract syntax tree. That is, everything depends upon your system, where you are going to execute it, how much memory you want to have for your compiler all alone. Are you getting the point, Priyadarshan?
Yes, ma'am. Like to show in the sense what, ma'am, to whom we are showing, ma'am. Like, uh, actually the thing is
To show in the sense it's a
we need to
compiler,
show
right?
to anyone. We
Yeah,
can just do abstract, no, ma'am.
you can do abstract. Show in the sense in the third phase, that is in the last phase where you are going to have your instruction scheduling, register allocation. During that time, those are the people who are going to take these informations, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Okay.
So, so how you want to represent it? That is what I initially itself we have told. It is like abstraction. So, what level of abstraction you want to hide behind? If you want to show in detail, that is like low level kind of thing. If you want to show all the details, like you had about talking about the grammar and then talking about the string and all detailedly, if you want to show, then go with parse tree. But when you are going with parse tree, your compiler will become huge. That is like the compiler itself will need certain amount of space for storing it, storing this entire parse tree informations. Okay. Are able to
Okay.
map
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say. Uh,
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
si-
ma'am.
Similarly, if you go with this abstract syntax tree, what happens? Background, you have so much of computation required. Okay, go anywhere. That is background. Each time you are deriving a particular string, background, the work will be happening. You will be working on with the grammar part. That is not explicitly shown. So when you are not explicitly showing it, what happens? Computation will be there. Space requirement is less. Similarly, when you go with this directed acyclic graph, what are the things which you have to extra thing what you have to see? You are not simply just creating all the whenever a variable is called, you are not creating the nodes as such. What you are seeing, you are seeing whether the same variable has been created before or not. So you have some little more computation part. Whether this variable has been already declared, that is like whether you have created a node for this or not. So once you have to go and verify that, if it is already created, then use that. If it is not created, then you create a new one. So abstraction level, the level of abstraction is high in your directed acyclic graph. Okay. So now itself you can see when I talk about the abstraction part in this parse tree, it is very low. There is no much abstraction here in the parse tree. When I talk about abstract syntax tree, it is little bit of abstraction is there. That is a little portion of information has been hidden. When you go with this directed acyclic graph, little more. Along with the grammar, you have some more computation done just to reduce the number of nodes. So when I say as the advantage part, I can say that memory requirement is less. So how I am saying memory requirement is less? Because I have to cross check whether this node is already there or not. So computation is little high, but memory is less.
Okay, ma'am. So, like, if abstraction is more, the register allocation is less.
Register allocation is less.
Fine.
Okay. Okay. So what ma'am has told about LHS, RHS part, once again we will be seeing in the data dependency part when we go with this linear and in functions. That time we are taking that part. So that time once again you can, if it is not clear here, that time once again we will see. That time it will be more clear. Okay. Okay. So let us move on. Okay, so that's it about the tree. So these are the three tree representations. Okay, three ways we can use the tree format. Coming to the graphical way of representation. So we can have three under graphs. We are just going to cover about this control flow graph, dependence graph, and call graph. These are the three things which we are going to see. Okay. Here control flow graph can also be called as CFG. Okay. Before also we have seen the CFG. What was that? Remember? What is this CFG? Context free grammar, right? So now for control flow graph also we can call this to be as CFG. So you have to see, if you find this term CFG, you have to understand whether it is whether we are talking about the grammar part or the graph part. Okay. Based on which step you are in, based on that you have to analyze it. Okay. Okay. So first we'll start with this control flow graph. Okay. So control flow graph. So as the name specifies, it is graph. Graph means usually usually whenever we say graph means what happens? It will just give you an overall picture of how it is, what it is, right? About what you are going to talk about. So it just gives a brief idea about what you are talking about. Now it says control flow graph. So control flow graph means here about along with saying what you are trying to, what you are explicitly going to show, along with that it puts some controls. So that is like it tells you about how it is flowing, from where it starts, from once you are executing this, once this step is getting done, then where you have to go next. So all these things will be shown in the control by using this control flow graph. Okay, so now there are certain terminologies which you have to know. So when you are saying control flow graph, usually what happens? It will be like whenever we have a set of things which say it's a graph, right? So when we say a graph, it will be represented in the circular form or in a rectangular form. You can just map it with any graphs. Okay, so when you are mapping it with any graphs, it is like it will have some representation for showing a particular node, or I can say it to be as a block. So for representing a block, you can make use of some circular form or rectangular form or rounded rectangular form, and some sort of representation we have. So where you will mention all the details. So inside that circle, you will be putting all the details. Say for example, in your flowchart. Flowchart is one form of graph, right? So there, for each block, that is like if you are having set of statements, you are putting it inside some shape, right? So that shape or that set of statements is called as basic block. Okay, and when you are having this basic block, how from one block to another block, how do you move? So when you are moving from one block to another block, either you will have some condition, or when you are jumping from, that is from when you are moving from one block to another block, you have to use a label. Then only it will be understood from for which block you are referring. So for that purpose, it will be numbered. Each shapes, that is like each block, will be numbered. So when we say a control flow graph, it is nothing but you have some set of statements mentioned inside a block. So that block we call it to be as a basic block. So that is the simplest form of representation. Okay, so when you are having your basic block, always remember it will be we don't have any conditions mentioned. You will be always using labels. So labels for jumping from one block to another block. So these two things you just remember. I'll come back to this theory part later. Okay, first we'll see the example and then come back to all this theory part. Okay, so control flow graph. Say for example, you are having your condition. That is like if you see this, I'm showing. Are you able to see the example here? If x is equals to y, then a is equals to 2, b is equals to 5. Then it is the other side. If you see, we have a equals 3, b equals 4. From both the things, you are coming to c equals a multiplied by b, right? So that means what? By seeing the structure, what you are able to understand? Are you able to understand something? Okay. So here it is like, for example, here it is mentioned to be as if x is equals to y. This side, it says a equals to 2, b equals to 5. If I move towards this, the right hand side, we say arrows are coming at one point and it says c equals a multiplied by b. For if statement. So when you are writing, please mute yourself. You have written it. So you have written this for if statement. So whatever controls you have, that is whatever statements you have, what you have written, you have made it into a block. Okay, so this block is what is called as basic blocks. So each rectangle block box mentioned is considered to be as basic block. Okay, So whatever set of statements you are having, everything is put under a rectangular box. So that box is what I was trying to say it to be as a basic block. And each basic block is being arrowed. That is like a flow has been shown. So by using these arrows, you have mentioned the flow. So now it is understood that from one block, that is x is equals to y, if it is true, this is flowchart wise. If you write something like this, if it is true, this direction it has to move. If it is false, if it is say no, then it will move towards this direction. And once you are done, either from this, if you say yes, also you will come to this statement. If you say no, also you will come to this statement. Okay, so after executing assigning a value to 3, b value to 4, and then you would be calculating the c part. If it is yes, you would be assigning a with 2 and b with 5, and you would be calculating the c part. Okay, now how do I so this is one way I can say it to be as the control flow graph. So all the arrows, that is like if you are connecting one block with another block, that is the basic block, by using an edge, I can just connect it. Within the box, whatever statements I have, I can express it in the linear format. That is like and by using the linear code representation form, I can just represent the code inside. That is, when I say yes, it is true, I have a set of statements like assigning a with value 2, b with value 5. When I say no, I have another set of statements. A is assigned with value 3, b is assigned with value 4. And when I have to connect from one basic block with another basic block, I am making use of edge. So that it is understood which flow, that is the flow is being mentioned clearly. We'll see one example here. Similarly, if you take out for this while loop, okay, so I have shown this control flow graph for while statement. So how it is mentioned, while I is less than 100, begin, I have a set of statements. I have just named it to be a statement 1, ending it. Once I come out of the loop, I have a set of statements, statement 2, right? So if I show it something like this, if I show in the graphical way, how it will be written, while I is less than 100, I will execute, if this condition is satisfied, I am going to execute statement 1. If it is not, I am going back here. And I will be within this portion itself, right? So when I write something like this, here it becomes a cycle, right? This is how it will be, how I'm, if I'm directly representing like this is how it is shown. But when you see something like this, what happens? It is a cycle is getting formed. So I can't directly use something like this. So instead what I have to do, I have to rewrite this particular while loop in such a way that by using some labels, I have to rewrite in such a way that I will never end up in a cyclic form. You remember writing your assembly code program by using labels. If this particular condition is satisfied, go to label, label, you will be having certain labels and you would mention, go to label, that particular label, name would be given. Otherwise, all the instructions would be mentioned. Remember how you have written your assembly code like this. If you are having something like a while statement and all, that is, you have to make sure that you will never end up in a cyclic format. Okay. So keeping that, I'll take up this example and then come back to the theory part, whatever we have left out. So say here, first example, that is like x is equals to 20 has been assigned. Next I am saying while x is less than 10, do, if x is less than 10, I have to execute x is equal to x minus 1 and I have an array a of x is equals to 10. Okay, within this loop itself, I am just checking if x is equals to 4, then execute I have to decrement my x value. I'm closing the if statement, I'm closing the while statement, coming out of the while statement, and then I am assigning y is equals to x plus 5. Okay, this is just the code snippet given. So outside the loop, I have initialized x value. Within the loop, I am decrementing the x value by one time and assigning the array value, that is a of x has been assigned with the value 10. It's an array. And then once again I'm checking if I reach my x to be as 4, I'm reducing it twice. My x value has been reduced twice. I'm just ending the if statement. I'm coming out of. Once I come out, I'm just incrementing my y value with x plus 5. So how do I draw the control flow graph for this? So always remember, whenever we have any conditions, the while statements especially, convert it. So you can see here, I have just numbered each and every statement here. Say, first statement what I have, x is equals to 20. So that I have numbered it to be as, I have just numbered each and every expression. So 1. Next, if you see, while x less than 10. So it is while loop. So it is a looping statement. So when I convert this and write it by using an if statement, how do I write? I would be writing it in the opposite way. The false part I would be writing. So what is my false part? If x is greater than or equal to 10. So if this condition is satisfied, that means opposite of this condition. If this condition, if my x is greater than or equal to 10 means, which one I have to execute? This part I have to execute. Right? Y is equals to x plus 5. Where did I write the statement? I have written it in the expression, that is the label 8. So if you see, if x is greater than or equal to 10, go to 8. I have numbered each and every expression and I am writing it. So I can't use loop here because we don't have any looping statement as such. So if all the looping statements would be converted into a simple if statement, and by using labels I would be mapping it. Okay. So next, what happens if this condition is not satisfied? That means we have to execute the loop part. So what will happen? X is equals to x minus 1. The internal what has been done, everything has been mentioned here. X is equal to x minus 1, which is numbered as the third one. After that, the next statement, a of x is equals to 10. So it is numbered as sequenced as fourth one. After that, we have a condition here. Again, you see, if this condition x equals to 4, then this one has to be executed. If it is false, then what happens? It has to come out, right? It should not execute anything else. So what I have written? So instead of x statement, what I have to check? X not equals to 4. So not equals has been represented like this. So x is not equals 4. What I have to do? I have to reach to end of loop. So that means I have to once again go back and check my loop part. So where should I go in this particular sequence? To my step 2. Sorry, go to step 7. From 7, go to step 2. So you will reach back here. If this condition isn't true, then you would be executing x is equal to x minus 2. Are you with me? I think all of you are lost.
No, ma'am.
So it is nothing but what happens here is whenever we are having any looping statement, we can't write the loop statement as such. Why? Because we will end up in a cyclic form. So to avoid the cycle, what we have to do is by using the labels, we would be converting, we would be making use of labels and we can jump over each locations. Okay. So what we have to do for each and every statement in your given code snippet, we have to number it. So that is what we have numbered. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 statements we have. So we have numbered it. So once we have finished numbering, what we have done, the while statement, all the conditions we have written it opposite. If you remember in assembly code what we have written, the same concept here. what you want to achieve, the opposite of that would be the condition what we write. So here if you say x is less than 10, then we would be writing it to be as x is greater than or equal to 10. If this condition is satisfied, that means you have to come out of the loop. So you have to reach to this eighth statement. So which is nothing but y equals x plus 5. Okay. If this condition is not satisfied, means where the control goes? Control goes to the next statement itself. So you would be executing this x minus 1, then you would be assigning value 10 into the array part, then you would reach to again condition. Here according to the code snippet you say x is equals to 4, but when you are writing here it is opposite, x is not equals to 4. So not equals to 4 means where the control should go? Control should go to end loop. So end loop means you will come back over here. So end loop means which is numbered as 7. So where it says go to label 2. So like this it has to be written. So now you see you will not end up in a loop. It will be always acyclic. Okay. So till here it is clear. Now coming to now how do I write the control flow graph? So whenever I have a control, whenever I have to make it to be as a basic units. How do I make basic units is whenever we have any block, that is like if statements, go to statements. So that I will make it to be as one block. So this is my one block. This is an other block. Right? If you see, are you able to make it out? So first, whenever you have a conditions, so those things you have to make it to be as a block. I think it's noisy. Okay. Then after that, remaining everything has to be made another block. So what is left out here? Left out things are, this one is another left out one. So this is another left out part. So this becomes another block. This will be another block. Sorry, this is another block. This is another block. And left out is this one. So like this is the one. How do we form the basic blocks? So first you number your all the entire code snippet and then identify based on the labels. You just identify it. After identifying the label, after rewriting your statements here, first you have to find out wherever you have your conditions. So that is like if second part is one condition, that is whenever you use go to statements, you make it to be as a basic block. After that, whatever left out things are there, that you make it to be as one single block. Is it clear? So keeping that, it will be mentioned like this.
Ma'am, we can not include that second step. Uh, Go to B4 can be because we are just pointing the arrow to B4.
Can you repeat your voice? I couldn't hear you.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yeah.
Ma'am, for the second block, if x is greater than equal to 10, go to B4. B4, anyway, we are pointing the arrow, so why we need to mention that? We can skip that.
Why we need to?
Like go to B4, why we need to mention that? We are pointing the arrow to B4 anyway.
This is for our representation, right? This is how we are. This is how we have made it, right?
Yes, ma'am. But what my doubt was that instead of mentioning B, go to B4. Anyway, we are pointing, no. So why we should mention B4?
Okay. It's little noisy. Um, why we have to explicitly make it to be as uh, um,
Go to A.
because we have the arrows mentioned. Uh,
Yes, ma'am.
But see, when we are saying arrows also, it is like
Yes, input methods reminders. If it is an else part, then only we'll go to
that is what um, explicitly when we this is how it is represented. But
Oh, I got it, ma'am. I think it is because we don't say if it is true, go here and false, go there. So in
we are
order to
not mentioning. It's like if we don't have true or false part. We always use only the label part, and that too the label when you just see all these are getting automated, right? We are not explicitly drawing and storing it, right? This is automated part. I mean, like we are just uh, we have an algorithm written for forming this control flow graph. So when we are saying the algorithm, how the algorithm would be, it will not create any arrows like this, right? We don't have any arrows mentioned as such. Instead, you are making use of, you are pointing to your basic blocks itself. So that is like we form a group of statements and number it. So this is a group of statement that is numbered to be as B3. We are not, are you getting my point? We are not explicitly
yes,
pointing it as such.
yes, ma'am.
It is coded part. So for our visual thing, we are showing it with your with an arrow and all. This is how we are visualizing it. But within the system, how system is going to visualize it? System will be visualizing only by using the blocks, right? Say go to B2. So B2 means which is nothing but this has been labeled. This unit has been block has been labeled as B2. So this entire code sequence has been numbered and sequenced in this form. Once this sequence is done, we are forming the basic blocks like this. So first, how I am forming the basic blocks is, whenever you have go to statement, wherever you have the go to statements, you just make it to be as one block. So this to be as one block, this to be as one block. Left out things, you just make it to be as another block, and now number it. So now when you say left out things, this is left out part. This entire thing is another left out thing. This is another left out thing. This is another left out thing. Now you number it in the sequence B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, B7. Here, whatever these two things have been put together, if you want, you can do it like this, or if you split also, there is no restriction. So usually when we write the algorithm, this is always remember everything is getting automated, right? So automated in the sense we have some algorithm to recreate this. So when we are recreating it, wherever you have a go-to statement, that will be the one first it makes a basic block. And all the remaining things will be made to be as another block. And then number it. So when you number, it will be numbered as B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, B7. And then by using these arrows, it is for our representation when you move from which block to which block. That is
Yes,
being coded, okay?
yes, ma'am. Got it, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Others, have you understood? It's very simple. If you just understand this blocking part, rest all is very simple. So, and one more point, this we are studying for compiler design. Here we are not restricted with any language. We can give the code snippet for any language like C, Java, uh, and that too it will be a small code snippet. It won't be entire big part, big code and all for from this portion at least. Fortran or C part. C code or C++, because already you have a basic idea of all these languages. So whenever we give any code snippet, the code snippet would be based on these languages. So accordingly, you have to rewrite it in this sequential form and then create the basic blocks and then create the control flow graph. Okay, we'll continue from this in the next class. So for your T2, we will include till here, till graphs we will include. Okay, so two more is left out. Let's see.